Why is it so important to separate from your family sometimes, especially if you are someone who wants to express yourself in a certain way, dress a certain way, act a certain way, but you may have family that is uncomfortable of how you move and you are struggling of, okay, how can I be myself around certain people? Friends too, but more particularly I'm talking about family on here because family can tend to have such a strong hold on you, and you want to not disappoint them, but at the same time you're disappointing yourself by not being like who you actually are. And for me, I be having a hard time with this because I'm such a family person. And I used to look at people who would like travel the world, move away from family, like miles and miles away. And I used to be like, how can you do that? I can't find myself leaving family and moving away somewhere for a certain amount of time. Like, how can you guys do this? Like, how do you guys do this without feeling any type of like sadness that you're leaving family behind? But now I understand more of why it's so important, especially if you are going through it, like what I was saying. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in this video. How I came to this realization of why it could be so beneficial to separate yourself from family, I got to give a little background about myself. So when I was like about 16, 17-ish, I was very into like entrepreneurial things, and I was doing things like making vision boards, even though I didn't know what I was doing at the time. I didn't know it was called vision boards. I was just doing things like that. And on top of that, I was surrounded by people who were doing great things, and that influenced me. Like I would help volunteer for things. Like I was that type of teenager. And when I got about like around 20, long story short, I was kicked out of the house. So therefore, I really, really, really had to get my shit together. So I couldn't hang out like that. Even though I wasn't really hanging out like that as it was, like I really couldn't hang out like that back then. And I couldn't really go around to barbecues, family reunions, this, that, and the third, because I was so busy getting my shit together. And I didn't know that at the time I was separating myself from family because I had to get my shit together. I didn't realize that I was causing like this separation. And throughout my 20s, I had a glow up phase. I'm in a better place. I'm in my own space. I could do basically what I want. No one can judge me. And I was able to write certain stories, and I'm starting to put books out now. And I feel like I'm in a judgment free zone where I can write how I write. Like, I write a lot of like dark, twisted stories. And some people are uncomfortable with that. But since I'm in my own zone, like my own realm, I can do basically what I want. So, with that being said, and plus, I've saved up a good amount of money. And, I don't need to um, depend on family or whatever for help. So, with that being said, once I started coming back around family, because I don't hold grudges at all, I didn't really realize how being away was so beneficial because of how long it's been and how much of a glow up phase I've had, and I forgot how bad it was back then. If I'm making sense, I have other examples that I can give, but I want to give this example of what made me realize it even more. And I mean, it's not much of a big deal, but at the same time, it kind of is because I can be very stubborn, and that's not always good. But I recently had put up a video last week. Well, about 2 weeks ago, I made a video talking about something that happened, and I was talking to a relative of mine, and they were so open about this conversation I was having with them. And it had a lot to do with the family and the family past. And I was so surprised of how open they was about talking about it. And I made a video like the following, well, last week I made a video talking about what happened in the family past. Now, somehow it ended up in another family member's algorithm on YouTube. They came across it, they saw it, didn't like it, and they called me up and was just like, "You gotta take this down." Now, I usually don't take down my videos, and I'm very stubborn, but I was just like, just to spare it, I took the video down. And from that, I think that was like the last straw that was leading up to certain things that happened that made me realize like why it's so important to separate yourself from family. Now, a few things that I was upset about the situation is the fact that it really had nothing to do with the person that called. And the situation I was talking about with the family past, it happened a few generations ago, and but it did affect the generations that came afterwards because it was a tragic situation. And since I was very surprised how open this family member was on like being open to talking about it, even wanting to write their own book about it and what they went through, it inspired me to like make the video because no family is perfect. And I wanted to talk about that type of topic a long time ago, but I am aware and conscious of what I put out. So I didn't want to like hurt nobody by talking about this type of topic. But since the main person of the story was so open to it, I felt that it was okay. But other people did not. And it really had nothing to do with them. It's just their ego. And that's what it really comes down to. Like when it comes to you being open and expressing yourself, like for instance, in the video, I was dressed in all black, like even had black lipstick. And this person was like, why was I dressed in all black, wearing black lipstick? It's kind of satanic, whatever. And I'm like, that's kind of my style though. And once I got off the phone with them, I was like, well, damn, like if it wasn't for me doing my own thing and figuring myself out and dressing how I want, just exploring myself, I probably would really be pressured to cater to my family's ego because it has nothing to really do with them. Me dressing in all black is not gonna hurt them. Me acting a certain way, that's not gonna hurt them. Um, I mean, it's not like I'm wilding out or anything, but it's not going to hurt them. It's just their ego. The ego doesn't like what it sees, and therefore it's embarrassing to them, and they just don't want to deal with it. So it's like that's when it's time to like really just separate yourself. Going back to the video that I had put up and I took it down for now. When it came to that, like I was coming from a very genuine place, and nobody's perfect, nobody's family is perfect. I haven't met not one family that is extremely like perfect, just full of angels. Like we all have toxic people in our family. And me talking about that, it was just me expressing what goes on and how it does affect society in a way when you don't resolve certain issues. But some people just want to, keep that behind closed doors. And this is what creates a toxic society as a whole when everybody comes from toxic families and doesn't heal from their traumas. And I was just coming from a very genuine space, but I did take the video down. And for me, like since I have a YouTube channel, I don't like, ooh, I'm very stubborn. I don't like being told what to do. And especially if I'm not hurting nobody. Um, and when it comes to family, like I was saying, like I am such a family person. And, when it comes to friends, I can easily cut people off. Like whatever, like if it's something that they've said that I didn't like or something that they did, I'm so easy to be like, I bet, and just go silent on them. But when it comes to family, it can be very difficult because they have such a strong hold on you and you don't want to disappoint them. But at the same time, you are disappointing yourself when it comes to not being who you actually are. And for anybody watching this, the last thing you want to do is to go through life appeasing your family or even maybe your friends. Um, and then years later down the line, you wake up and realize that you really haven't truly lived like how you wanted to because you're too busy trying to keep everybody happy. Even those family members that may be very, 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 very toxic on your life, you're still trying to get their approval. And when it comes to that, at that point, you definitely need to separate yourself, even if it hurts, because the last thing you want to do is hurt yourself. If I'm making sense, and I hope I am. Now, if it wasn't for me separating myself from my family, I wouldn't have been able to accomplish certain things that I've accomplished now, like putting out books, writing certain stories, exploring myself when it comes to like spirituality. And looking at my apartment right now, I have certain things in here that I'm able to, expand on and without judgment because I'm not surrounded by anyone that can judge me. For an example, this right here is a Edgar Allan Poe tarot deck, and I really like this deck. And I usually keep my tarot cards right up here, but I would never been able to do that if I was surrounded by my family all the time. And some of them, they don't like the idea of that. Some of them do. But either way, it doesn't matter. The fact that I have my own place and I can express myself in a certain way and without judgment, I don't got to deal with that. Another thing, too, if it wasn't for me separating myself from my family, I would have never been able to explore um, finding my Native American side of the family. Now, if you're Black and you're watching this, when it comes to the Black community, it's like when you try to explore like certain nationalities that you may have that you've been told through the family, or if you've been told that you have Indian in your family, and you want to know more about that, and they're like standoff about it, like, oh, just you're Black, that's it. Um, you might feel some type of way. And for me, since I'm in my own non judgment zone, I was able to explore that side. And because of that, I found out so much. And another thing, too, a cousin of mine who's been into like the Native American stuff, he knows a lot. And he's kind of like an outcast, too, when it comes to family. Like he does his own thing. And since I've been open about this type of topic to him, he started showing me so many things, which I'm going to talk about next week, another video. So, because he is able to explore without judgment, because he's kind of like a family in a way, even though he loves family, he's a family person like myself. It's like you have to step away sometimes because you'll never be able to grow with all the judgment that comes from family because of their ego. Like I said, it has nothing to do with them sometimes. Sometimes it's just their ego. And you can't appease their ego all the time. Like it just can't. You just can't do it. That is it for this video. I hope I have said something on here that may resonate with you, especially if you're thinking about taking that leap of faith and just doing your own thing without judgment from family. it's never cool to dim your light and dim who you are just for the sake of your family's ego and keeping them happy. But yeah, hopefully this video helped you out.